talk a little bit about the barbarian picks on this new turn. This is turn 4 here, where Thrace turns into a more important location. So our earliest pick was the Reds, and they got number 1, the Brigantes. Maybe not their favorite pick. When they looked at it, maybe not their least favorite. They have some possessions everywhere. Over here, for example, and, well, maybe not so many. But taking an early pick deprives other people of an early pick, who maybe could do well with it, as well as giving them one. The more powerful might seem to be the Marcomanni with their strength of 5, but right now they're bottled up down here. And that's not necessarily the easiest place to get out of. It hurts me when they come out, so I kind of wouldn't like to have to fight my way through Rome or capture Rome or whatever. Although, I could do something kind of cool, which is, if my Romans went first, rebuild Rome, then sack it, get the victory points on my barbarians for that, and then maybe some other time re-sack it. Well, nobody else can rebuild Rome, so... But I'd get more victory points off sacking Rome than I would off of holding on to it, as the Romans, at least temporarily. But that didn't look like it was going to possibly happen, so the Brigantes seemed like a good shot to go for, because they go first. The next is Green got the next shot, and they also liked their choice, which was the Marcomanni, thinking, well, I'll get some good points by marching up through Italy. Italy's worth a lot of victory points. I might even get a dominance in Italy, or actually control. Dominance should be easy, because I can't go sailing off with these guys. Maybe some of them have some naval power, I'm not sure, but mainly it's just the Romans that do, unless there's special rules on a card or something. The next pick was green, yellow. Yellow got the next one, and they drew number 4, the Suebi, who are pretty potent. But my thought was, well, I have a lot of stuff scattered all over, so I made a roll for them, because I can't know as them that the 2 best are picked, but that's still a pretty good pick. So if I was faced with it, I would be troubled by, do I want to hand this away and take a risk on whatever the last pick is? Well, the last pick ended up slightly worse for them, the Alemanni down here, but not terribly bad. The only problem is that's Pannonia, which is going to finish off my Pannonians. And that's the one reason I wouldn't want it. I want it to go before the Alemanni could possibly come in and do that. But, yeah, you know, how am I to know? Right, the Alemanni look like a better pick than, say, the Brigantes at this point. Or maybe the Sarmatians, although that's hard to tell. Anyway, that's where we are. I got to pick the Romans. Looking to see if we have any great ones. We have Aurelius. Got some of the victory point per province. This looks like a pretty good set of... given that guys like Maxinius Thrax are up there, it looks like we got a pretty decent set, given the actual emperors that are there. They seem a little highly rated. It essentially screwed up on the emperor's pick. Their first one, they picked Commodus, who should be terrible, but he comes up with an extra legion at least. I mean, this is one of the worst. Okay. Well, what's nice about Commodus is that he shows up as the second choice. And red kind of wanted to go real early. The problem is, if I pass that not to blue, I feel like I'm fairly safe in my position. I might lose Rome, but probably not, because it's not built up. It's worth no more than any other city. And I'm doing so poorly on the points in last place that people probably aren't going to be trying to hit me terribly hard. So I gave it to the guy who's the least able to hurt me, yellow over here. Now, yellow could still sail through and hit Rome just as easily as anyone. As long as you have a coastal region, you can do that. But still, it seemed the least likely place to launch an attack on Rome from. The problem with that is blue is the person who was next in line, so they get the next pick, so I can't handcuff them. Their pick, well, I don't remember. Did they get 6? Yeah, I think they got 6, which is Philippus. No, that can't be. No, they got 3, which is Septimus Severus, who is awesome. Hey, we're here for him. No, that's way back there. Okay. Anyway, Severus is awesome. He's got a bonus in attack and a bonus in provinces. He should be able to give me some serious points. And now, that put the next pick over to green, and green, I think, pulled 6 here, which is perhaps one of the worst for red. Comes absolutely last. Philippus, he's not a bad combat leader. Philippus Erebus? They don't say Erebus on there, but I think he's Philippus Erebus. And is about expansion, which will be okay, but it just kind of sucks because now you got to pay more for leaders, and I may not be holding on to much at that point. And that meant yellow, who got the final pick, gave the prize, the thing red was hoping for, Antonius Augustus. But I would be happy with Septimus Severus as well in terms of positioning versus this. I was able to hand this away somewhere. So I was hoping that someone would hand me the good position, but the problem was I handed it to the last person to get a pick. So everyone else was kind of free to draw and choose. I didn't handcuff the next guy properly, but I couldn't. I could not give him Commodus because he's in the position to attack me at least as easily as anywhere else. Yeah, this bad terrain's no better than landing by sea, so I don't know. The Brigantes kind of crapped out, and I ended up just defending there. Now, that meant I got 13 plus 1 point for my one. Ooh, that's a 2-point city for non-Romans now? Hold on. I want to make sure. Yeah, that's 2 points. So I get another point for holding that, which makes it a little better. My main force being over here in Scythia. I got these Alani who are not going away. They'll show up again down here. Okay. The Brigantes are mine for the rest of the game, though. Nobody can take them away. That's kind of cool. So, turtling up here is kind of good. That means we look for a 1. And I think, yeah, there's a 1 there. So he's going to be running his Romans next. And I did a mixed bag with green and not a very wise one. I started upgrading everything, so I've got fortresses and cities everywhere where I've captured and hold them. But you know what? I should be playing my card first. So here I'm allowed to place a rebel army in any province of my choice, and it attacks everything in the province until victorious or defeated. No difficult terrain applies, but the other things do. Now this is rebel legions, but this is regular rebels. This is what's going to go in, and it's going to attack those Thracians. If I get lucky there, I'll probably buy an extra unit, or maybe just use the extra unit I have to try to expand into there. But I think I'll probably buy one. So, no difficult terrain, but the fortress does. There's a +1 on the defense there. Seems like a time to play this card. And I kill one of the Thracians. And we'll keep going. They got nowhere to go. I kill the other one. However, I have not killed that ends Thrace. I gotta keep this because the loot values die. Nah, that's the standard. I'm not gonna worry about trying to remember that it has the standard loot value. Okay, and now we get to hit the fortress, or the fortification, which is just as the other attack. And it looks like we won that too. We have destroyed the fortification, which might be kind of the negative to it all. Now this rebel is just uncontrolled. I don't get any points for it or anything. And unlike in History of the World, there's no instructions that it eliminates itself after it's used. So now there's a rebel there. I still have to fight my way in to get there, but I think I'm going to do that, and I'm going to spend 3 more victory points. I've spent a whole bunch of victory points to get myself another legion. What's my ability with this guy? Oh wait, he gets a free legion. Give me that. 1, 2, 3. But I may want some additional legions as well. Because I have a +1 to attack. So I'm going to think about that. I'll be back in a bit. And I obviously cheated. These guys would have been the chatty. These guys were the Macromundians or whatever. I'm going to swap them out. I'll leave the points as they are. But, yeah. Oops. And we pulled some decent points. Spent a lot of points, no question, but pulled some decent points in by getting Thracia, looting it. Couldn't loot Syria. I don't know where else we went, but we got to score off all the cities we got. And we had a lot of territorial points, for example, dominating Gracia, dominating Asia. That scored us pretty well, so now we're up at 60. I think other people will pass us, but you got to remember the Romans weren't our biggest score, but now they're built up and in pretty good shape. And I've got the next one, the Marcomannians, and I didn't go into Rome because I left room for them to come marching up, because they're going to be active next. Boom, we take all this territory back. And by the way, that little cheating thing, probably the points would have been about the same. There might have been some expansion here to do it, but let's not worry too much about it. Mistakes happen in games, what the hell. I still got my Parthians producing points and fairly well defended. And now with this, I threw into Ratia, not with some hope that it'll produce points. I get no points for a looted city. What about Rome? I get a point for Rome that I didn't take. So now I'm at 60 with both of my things. And yeah, these stupid smearing counters. That's going to put us over to the Romans again, which means we're looking for Commodus, who's over here. And we'll be taking the yellows up. Has anybody been knocked off the board? Yellow still exists. I think red's gone. Yeah, red's going to have to make another entry onto the board. Commodius spent a couple of points to get himself into Rome and take a shot at Thracia, the high value areas. That didn't work out too well. He got into Rome. I guess he picked up 6 points off that, which is what he spent total, right? Because he got 1 free legion, he built 2 more. But otherwise, he's kind of disassociated here. Cappadocia, Syria. Should have grabbed Syria. That would have been an easy attack. Just to combine so he has a place to retreat. He's kind of in a position where he might lose everything here. He didn't play a card. This is pretty much by his cards the last turn he can do that. He's got weaponry, elite troops, and siegecraft, all of which will be useful on the attack with the Romans pretty much. People's Revive, well, he can use that with a barbarian, possibly the Armenians, if he can't think of anywhere better to do it. He might have a barbarian that fits well for that. Anyway, that's where he went. That means we go and look for, I guess, the Sarmati. Token 3 for the rebels isn't in play. So we go to token 4, which is going to be the Suebi over here. And we'll see what can be done with those Germans. Well, kind of an iffy play here, but the blue player used the Sueve to incredible effect. He had a revolt here, which allowed him to loosen that up a little bit and make it possible to ooze down there, because he wasn't that interested in scoring this or this, but he was kind of made a mistake. He probably should have played, he had a plague or something that he could have hit that whole area with, and that would have allowed him to expand into these, get dominance in both of these, dominance probably in here a lot more securely than he actually did, but he got very, very lucky and ended up taking all of Italy there, getting the extra point for Rome. With the rolls he had, he could have gone wherever he wanted, really. Anyway, that means our next should be Septimus Severus, who is indeed his own, and we'll see what he can do with that. Not terribly interested in taking Rome from himself, although he's positioned for it. We'll see what Septimus can do, though. He has +1 attack and victory points per province. We have a lot of provinces. Blue should be making sort of a watershed turn this time. We took the Constantinople potential capital, which still hasn't been rebuilt as a Roman capital, along with sacking Pontus. That was a shitty roll. We only got a 1 on it. I think we ended up about even off the turn. I'm not sure. And that was using up the Fury card, which let us win ties. Yeah. And it was sort of the best route we can go. Now, one of the disadvantages here is that Hispania starts becoming less valuable. Italia stays valuable throughout. In fact, Greece becomes the valuable area, Greece and Arabia, where the wealth kind of is circulated. Asia never seems to get to be worth very much, which is very strange in my view, because much of the wealth of the empire was in the Syrian area. Yes, Arabia is wealthy too, but anyway, that's the end of Severus, and now we go, and it's the last of these, the Alemanni. Somebody's got to be holding them. That's over here with yellow, and he doesn't have, oh, these are the ones that bone his Pannonians. Crap. Well, there goes one of his potential victory point places, or people. I don't think we have Pannonians coming anytime in the future. Usually they stay kind of close, but there's often skips in them. So I got to figure out what kind of card to play and what to do with it. Alemanni fail. They had a couple extra units when they hit Rome, but they didn't take it, which is a real pity because that's the dominance position for Rome. They could have then, had they gotten here and had perfect situation, they could have gotten into Greece and Dacia. They didn't get those points, but you can see they're still scoring pretty high. Nowhere near, though, what Blues managed. We're going to try to hit them. That means there's only one left, Philippus, who gets a +1 attack. He's over here. We'll see what he can do on his turn. And Philippus finishes things off, breaking pretty much even. He bought 9 of his 10 units, didn't end up losing a single one. Managed to take dominance in Hispania, Italy, including Rome, Graecia, including Thrace. A lot of points there. Too bad he didn't have the +1 per province advantage that Severus had. But, you know, breaking even and getting this kind of board position when you're not doing terribly well is incredibly valuable, unless somebody really wants to hunt him down. Now, he is sitting on some of the most valuable territory, so some of it's going to fall, there's no question. But Hispania is becoming a backwater and will probably not be taken away from him very easily. So we'll see how that goes. He also really took blue down hard, which needed to be done, but yellow also needed to be hit. There isn't a lot of yellow Romans to hit, which is one of the factors, is that yellow's Romans are doing so poorly at this point that unless they expend big on it, and maybe they will and do as well as red just did, they're not as big a threat. Basically, your Romans are your big point getters throughout because they don't fall away from you from that. Anyway, that pushes us into era 5 here. Got up stupidly early today. It's light now, but wow. Okay, so for the picks for the barbarians, I haven't done the Romans yet, but that's okay. Red got the first pick. Remember, I'm cheating here. And I don't remember what they got. They got the Franks. And they decided to hand them off to Yellow, who's the leading player. Largely because they just didn't see him as that valuable a choice. Now, they weren't the worst choice. Really, everything kind of behind them's almost worse. So it was kind of a friendly move to give them to Yellow. They should have given them to one of the other powers. The Franks are going to start here. They're a fair-sized group. They've got 5. And that gives them access down to Rome, which is actually where Red has one of their power bases. But I was looking with an eye to getting either the Alemanni or the Goths, either of which looked richer to me because they got a first trigger go. I'm not really terribly interested in that first trigger, although I do have the Alani, which are some nice points. I don't think I have much else. I have over in Britannia. But those guys were the bigger groups, which is kind of the opposite of what you usually see in History of the World. Usually the larger stuff goes later in the turn. It's actually, chronologically ordered, but that's just how they do it. It's the same here. It's chronological, but the splits ended up falling this way instead. There may have been a design effort in History of the World to make it back end, put the heavier units towards the end. Anyway, the next pick was Green, who did not like their pick. They got the Samarte, which I think are one of the worst two, and handed them off to the next leading player. And then Yellow, as the next lowest barbarian, or the next barbarian in line, they drew, I believe, number 4 here. I'm sorry. Green got the Garamantes and gave them to Blue, which is the worst of them. Yellow drew the Sarmate, and, well, they're pretty happy with Red, and Red's losing, so they certainly gave it to Green. And then the random pick went with the Goths for Red, which turns out pretty damn good for Red. But I think they gave the wrong person the Franks. And now we'll do the Roman. Amount of time it took me to remember things, I'll do it in real time. I picked Aurelianus, which is pretty good. Has victory points per province, comes early. Man, with my position as Red, I scooped that up. I want those points. The next person looks like it's Blue, who gets number 1. Gallienus, +1 attack. I'm barely on the board. I don't know if an early play makes sense for me. Especially when there's decent stuff here, like Diocletian. Of course, there's dangerous stuff like Licinius, but I think I can get away with this. And what I want to do with this is I want to handcuff Yellow with it. Not particularly because it's necessarily bad for Yellow, although it is. They don't have much on the board. But because they have the next draw for Romans, and actually looks to me like Green's doing second best here, not Yellow, or maybe best. Yellow draws a 5, who is Maximilius Herculus. Late in the turn, an attack. It's not a bad counter at all, but it's also not a terribly good one. And the question is, do I want to give this to Blue or Green? I have no idea. Because it's kind of a mid-range piece. It doesn't really hurt either. The only thing that's worst is Licinius, but I'll give it to Green. It's pretty bad out of the pile. Of course, he could get Licinius, but he does not. He gets the bonus Diocletian. So he's glad everybody's probably glad. And who saw that? Green gets to see that. So the last player is aware that he's Diocletian here. Okay. And that's going to fire us off with the Alemanni, who I don't think exist. Get us to the Goths over here. So the Goths pull in a fair amount of points, but they didn't do much. Red had a decent position on the board already. Gained myself dominance in Germania and made it into Raetia, but mainly just lost pieces trying to cross bad terrain. I had Wrath of God in my hand, the Goth card, basically. But it didn't seem worth it, even though they're a huge pile. Felt to me like, one, I'd rather hold it, and two, I'd rather use it for the Romans. I can always use it for period 7 Goths. It's not like I'm going to be getting the Goths each turn necessarily, if I get them. Or I could use it for the Huns. Even worse. So there are plenty of opportunities for good barbarians as long as I'm in the back of the pack. No reason to spoil my card now, and it might be useful for my Romans. Although the Romans are becoming less and less important as we go, because with less turns, having that perpetual existence becomes less important. Certainly on turn 7, I just want to score my Romans as well as I can. I don't really care about what they hold afterwards. That's not entirely true. They do get some victory points at the end as well. Like some of the other players, when they're really far behind, have a decent leader. Gallienus is decent here. And are willing to play a card. And I'm running late in the game, so a card seemed like a thing to do. Elite troops gave me an extra die. I couldn't afford to go all out. So I bought like 4 units or something for 12. Ended up making some of that back by grabbing Thracia, most of Greece, Dalmatia. Built the first Roman city in I don't know how long, forever basically. Because it's really hard. Once cities start filling the map, it's really hard for a player to do so. I probably screwed up though. I probably should have taken Syria, at least committed another unit there. And had I done that, well, then I wouldn't have gotten that extra, the city that I did, but I would have gotten the ability to gain this one. And maybe tried to go further somewhere else, but who knows. Anyway, that's going to put us back over here, and it's going to be the Franks, which is my other power. And I've kept most of my, or all of my territories here. I lost some Chatti that were over in Germania, which is going to be a problem, but I'm going to be back in Germania right away. The Franks pretty much piss out. They managed to get control of Germania, because I still have the Alemanni here. I'm sorry, dominance. And then kind of tried to go for control. That didn't work. It would have been easier, I think, than going for this, but then I moved to this because that would be the next thing that could give me value. I'm surrounded by my own pieces, which is kind of the problem. But I managed to get a decent amount of points off them, scooping up into the 76 level. I don't know what it was, like 19 points or something. I only have 1 city, but a lot of other presents kicking around everywhere. Some of it kind of hard to dig out, like 2 pieces here, 2 places here. Not quite the 3 pieces that could get me a victory point, but still pretty impressive, the scoring. So that means we had Gallienus. We're looking for Aurelianus, who's over here. He'll be up next. Aurelianus got a fair amount of points, but he had a fair amount banked. He bought a couple new units. He built up cities. He played an engineering card to build himself some forts. Can't build fortresses with that. Took one in Baetica and one in Rome. Built his cities up. But his actual expansion was up here into Dalmatia, I believe. And he tried to go to expand into Greece. That didn't work. He didn't buy a lot of pieces. He went instead and killed the Picts. up here, getting himself some presence up there in Gaul. There's no real reason to expand Rome's borders directly if you're not connected. So, grabbing this made at least as much sense as grabbing Lugdunensis for him. And they were equally easy to take. Scythia would have been more valuable to him, but he didn't want to destroy his own base in Scythia. And, an attack into Germania looked just as hard as into Gaul and almost impossible to maintain. This looked like a place I could just stay for the game because nobody really cares about it. So that's kind of cool. With the Romans not having made it into Britain, Ireland is kind of neat. And Green's Sarmatians broke back out, struck down, took Thrace, tried to get into Dalmatia, didn't get there. But that gave them lots of new territories. Oh, and I also got the Sassanids, which erupted in my own territory. Probably a point bone for me overall, but it's hard to tell, and I could always just slide in there, take it, and pillage it, and declare them defeated if I desire, and I'm hard to take out by anyone else. So I could do a looting of Syria, which would give me some points. Total points got me right up there with the pack and the barbarians. The only person who's the last barbarian to go is this guy, so he's going to be surpassing everyone else, but he has so few Roman points. Of course, his Romans haven't gone either, so that may be an issue there. We should be looking for token 3 for the Romans. There isn't one. No Probus. What a shame. That means 4 is going to be Diocletian, putting us over here. And Diocletian's one of the big boys. Blue's going to need it because all he has is this now. Diocletian kind of craps out in terms of points. Bought a lot of units. Oh, I forgot. He gets the 1 per province. That'll help. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Still, he didn't gain it that many provinces. You can see his Romans aren't really catching up as well as you might hope. His card was a rebellion, which he played in Belgica, hoping to get into Gaul cheap. He could have gotten in for free. But now that he's lost his Picts, Lugdunensis is of some importance to his barbarians, so he doesn't want to attack them. And he managed to spread himself into Rome, got the points for that. 7 points in cities, and the points for dominating those 2 areas. But it just didn't pay off much more than the 20-something points. He broke about even. Now, the good thing about it is his next couple turns, he's got a better position, and Red no longer does. Red was in a fairly strong position. But of course, what we see is if somebody's willing to pay money, they can take you down as the Romans. So Diocletian, instead of unifying the empire and creating his new reforms, ends up just being just another Roman civil war. Whereas Red's player here too, Aurelianus, was actually kind of the person who rebuilt Rome and did quite a bit. Now, he was building off of whomever Red had before who took Rome. But anyway, the East, which should be more valuable, is kind of a mess right now, actually. So I think our next one is the final of the barbarians, the Guermantes. Not a lot I can do with them. Are the Gauls still? Yeah, the Gauls are still there. Okay. Not a lot of growth or points, honestly. However, I did manage to sack Egypt, which is a tough thing to do since I didn't really use any cards to do it, and looted it. Alternatively, I probably could have gotten more points had I moved into Africa, had I moved into Numidia. I could have gotten an extra point, and I could have wiped yellow out if I made it as far as Mauritania, which would have been a better move, but I thought I might get a good roll on my looting. And I took a city away from green. They're Romans, which green is certainly doing pretty well. Really, everyone looks about equal except for red. Red looks like they're struggling. That puts me to the last of the emperors, which is going to be Maximianus. And he is over here. Don't know what that's going to do for him. He's got a +1 attack, which makes it desirable to add pieces, but he's not a point gainer. And I do have an extra piece here in Cilicia, actually. Crap, and I can blame this one on component issues again. I love doing that. I think Swebby was blue. I lost track of them when they got wiped out up here, but there's one down here, which is worth an additional 4 points this turn for the barbarians, which gives me quite a bit more padding. And green does quite a good job. They paid out a lot of points, then threw a pestilence down in Cisalpino, which cleared out all of the north here. Didn't get Rome, but Rome was easy to expand into, even with the fort. Although I lost a piece there, I think. And then the final attack was to try to get into Africa because of the extra city in Egypt, which would give us additional points. But we ended up with a pretty damn good score on the Romans after that, even without any scoring bonus for this leader. And that's going to throw us down into turn 6 and the start of that. And red feels they red ended up misplaying the barbarians. I'm not sure they know they did, but they know they ended up with something they didn't terribly want. They got the draw of 3, which is the Franchi. Now, what they want to do, in the absence of all other things, if they don't want a particular barbarian, they want to hand it to the next guy in order, who happened to be green. However, because that handcuffs green, I've explained that before. However, they thought the Franchi kind of aren't that bad for green, because green has a good position with the barbarians. So they handed it off to blue. Now, I don't know how big a deal they are for blue either, because blue has some position as well scattered about. But they're kind of a crappy power starting up here. Okay. But the problem is green got the Huns as their pick, which, had they been forced to give it away, would have probably given it to red, who's doing the poorest. And then our next pick was yellow, who also got one they wanted, the Goths. Goes early, has a lot of pieces, sounds sweet. I already have some position on the board. And I get to count my Franchi, which is big because they're not going to swing over. Not that I know that. I'm worried more. I would have rather had the Alemanni because... But anyway. Turns out the Alemanni didn't come up, so I'm bonus there. And then blue, who had the last pick, got something kind of random, the Sarmati, which isn't particularly good for red, so they didn't get the advantage of being the weakest player perceptually, and ended up getting kind of a crappy pick. If they had handcuffed green, which is the general thing you want to do, make the next guy who goes not have the option to take the chit, have to choose to give it to someone else. When you're in last place, you definitely want to do that, but he let other considerations come into play, and it ended up bad. Sometimes it can work out. Anyway, on to the Romans. What do we have here? Oh, we got Constantine. Early bonus attack and victory points per province. We have Julian, also very good, same bonuses. And then we have Theodosius, who also wins ties and gets victory points per province. So we have a lot of good Romans here. Next turn, we have a bunch of kind of crappy Romans. There's not much, you know, this is the real decline of Rome at that point. So here's how the Roman picks fall out. Red got a first draw, and they got the very lousy Constans, I think. No, yeah, they got the very lousy Constans. And they did it right this time. They handed it to blue, making sure blue does not get a good pick. Now, for blue, that's fine. From red's point of view, it's fine all the way, because blue's not very powerful at this point. Constans isn't going to give him a lot of points, so he's probably not going to do much with him. In fact, he may not try to expand at all, although Africa Proconsularis is open right now due to the evacuation by the Guermantes, which might mean that there is an avenue to gain some points running as far as Egypt, which might be valuable. Well, Egypt's his, but certainly a piece to slide into there seems worthwhile. Assuming Constantine doesn't come up, which he didn't. The next pick was Blues, and he also got a lousy one. He got Constantius, which he gave to not the next player. He didn't bother handcuffing the next player, but to the person he's most worried about, because Constantius is probably the worst pick out of the bunch. And then that meant yellow got a pick which he got to keep. He got the good one, Julian. And then green's pick went automatically to red, and it's not a terribly good one. He ended up with Valens. Not bad, not great. Actually, it went the other way. Green got Valens and threw it over to red first. So Julian came up last, I think. Which means red knows that green has Julian, right? And we're ready to start. And I'm going to be going away for a while. So we'll move to our first Roman, who's going to be Constans over here, not having Constantine. Our Alemanni for yellow. Swept down, almost took Rome. They had 2 extra pieces to hit into here. They did loot Dalmatia, though. And now they've lapped the chart. And are up to 105 points in their barbarians. You can see the chart's not quite big enough. We've got another turn still to go, so pity they're not double-sided counters you could flip over with a plus 100 or something on them. So here, Constans is going to start a revolt. Now this is a weird card. The rebellions or whatever, they make more sense to me. Here it says that you convert 3 active enemy legions, and I've chosen these 3. And I put a rebel marker on top of each one. Great. Convert into rebel legions. The rebel legions attack everything in their respective provinces. To me, that means they're going to attack the forts as well, if there are fortifications there. The reason I chose these is I can buy my way into them. These forts are part of my value. I'm hoping to get Cilicia. But if I can't get that and buy my way into Asia, if I can't get that, well, maybe I'll at least get Cappadocia. So this is before I play my Imperial force. I'm going to roll the attacks here. So this is against a fortress. Normally a Roman wouldn't attack a fortress. But I end up defeating it. And I don't loot the province. And then here, it's against a fort. Even though I'm probably not interested in that. The fort has a +1, so it destroys this and kills one of the yellow legions, which is just as good, right? Yeah. Okay, well, that means I could game this pretty easily. It kind of gives me an interesting situation. I could attack the Sassanids here. All they have is a fort. Ooh, I can only use the 1 card, the way it's worded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pay... This is red's turn, I think. No. Oh, geez, this was green... blue? Wait, what the fuck? Blue didn't want to do what they just did. It had to be red that did it. Let me reverse that. I'm getting confused and I don't know why. I swear I picked a red card. I must not have. Okay. I got confused there. It happens to me. Alright, I'm going to undo all of that. Because blue's not interested in that at all. This was a yellow controlled space. This is a blue. I gotta rethink. Well, same core idea. I'm gonna do the revolt throughout Hispania. We'll see what that does me. So I might get some additional plays off of this. So this just goes rebel, no biggie. Here I'm gonna attack the fort. Okay, but the fort was at +1, so that kills a red rebel. And up here also. And the fort was at +1, so it kills a green rebel. In a sense, these are cheaper because I can just move into them now. But they're more expensive in terms of the armies I have to build. Now, I've got some easy armies I can build here. I can get, so I can get all of Hispania for 3, 6, 7, 8. 2 of that's definitely worth paying for because that'll get me 3 extra points. The other 6, less so. I'm not sure they're worth buying. On the other hand, that leaves Roman forts open for other people who have expansion capabilities, who are maybe better, who have maybe plus victory points per province. So I think I'm going to want to absorb into them anyway, just to take the points away from other people. In fact, this one becomes more questionable if I am only going to take one. I also kind of want to take Africa Proconsularis. Now that gives me 1, 2, 3 locations. I could buy another location and move into Serenica and then build a city. I could do this automatically because that's my color. And it doesn't really hurt me because I'd still have Egypt for my barbarians. Alternatively, I could try to attack something. I'm not sure that's as valuable, or going to Sicily. So I think what I'm going to do, but if I take both of these, maybe I want to take something else, like Numidia. The thing is, I didn't really gain points, but I gained territory, which is somewhat useful. I kind of broke even on points, I think. I'm up at 56 at the end of this. I could have gained points by doing nothing, but I've got a stronger position. I've got an extra city that's fortified, and I've got a card that allows me to fortify locations in my hand, which might be useful in the last turn. I would have kind of liked to do it this turn, but I didn't really have many places, you know. The 2 locations I was in were already fortified. Well, I was down here somewhere to Tarraconensis, so I could have fortified this. This was as big as it can be because it doesn't have a city, so it can't be turned into a fortress. That puts us over to the next rebel, who will be the Goths. They're token 2 for the rebellion over here. Just screwing up left and right on this turn. Damn it. The Goths are number 2. I went with the Alemanni before with number 1. It's these damn little chits instead of the counters. Now, the Goths should have gone. I took the Alemanni instead. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I scored them, and then I played this damn Siegecraft to do shit, and that screws everything up. I don't even know who was here. We had a fort, and I think a green dude here, and we had an Alemanni here, and I don't know. I don't have enough Goths. I should have 7 of them. There's 4 here, 5. Where are my other 2? Here. I'm just going to leave it as it is because I can't recover. So what was here? An Alemanni was here. I went and attacked my own Alemanni. But I've already scored the points for these, which is what confused me. Yeah, the components for this game are really, really causing me problems, especially with the kind of me walking away and trying to play the way I do. I can imagine that they'd cause problems even in an opposed game. I've seen people reach for the wrong pieces in a lot of different games, like if you play Britannia in like the 3-player scenario where the colors don't align. Here, and it's just it's not working for me. I'm gonna leave it as it is though, because I don't know what else to do. This was just a fort, I think, not a fortress. I don't remember for sure. Okay. So it shouldn't have been the Goths that went. It should be the Franks, who are number 3 over here instead. And I'll try to figure out them. Okay, so blue ends up expanding into here and into Dacia, then tries to go into Sarmatia here and fails, which was dumb because I had this. But again, it's really hard to tell without, you know, History of the World had color-coded pieces everywhere. You could see where your stuff was. Sometimes, you know, that might have been a little difficult seeing the different eras between them, at least with the stupid plastic pieces. But the original game was fine. But this dual mechanism of the Romans with one color and then these pieces without, you know what would work is if there were a number of little, I don't know, plastic or cardboard insets that gave you a color rim that you could pop pieces into or just lay pieces on top of, a la Tikal's stacking or whatever, so that you could see what the colors were, or just color control markers that you could put all over the place. And of course you can make these. That wouldn't be that terrible. But as it stands, the components for the game don't give you enough control. And then there's these silly little tokens, which also are problematic for assessing who's going next. So the Franchi just went. That means we're looking for Constantius as next, and he is number 3. So I've got to look for 3 with a wreath. You know, there's just so many things that you have to get used to find these things. And I'm sure for the average player playing one game, sitting down, being there, you get used to it by this point in the game. But when you're wandering off all the time, it doesn't work that well. And I would guess there's probably going to be significant problems even at an opposed table where you're just sitting there for the entire sitting, for the entire session, with remembering that early on in the game and that mistakes will be made. Onward. And we're up to good old Constantius, who also has a revolt card and is throwing revolts here, here, and I'm sorry, here, here, and where's the other one? Over here. These are kind of important because this one gets him control of Arabia for 2 points, or dominance in Arabia. If he gets this one, if he gets this one, he gets dominance in Asia. This one's going to get him 1 away from dominance in Greece, and then he can buy an army and try to invade Thracia, which is worth extra points for being the constantly pillaged Constantinople. Rome's held out a lot better. He's got the capital here though, so yeah, it's not too bad. And we'll see what he can do. Largely worked. Bought into the provinces. This we had to pay 3 to go into because the rebels were defeated. That's why there's still a fort there. And then we slipped into here. Ended up getting up to 99 points for Rome, which is pretty good in the Roman side of things. Would I have gotten that? You know, what's hard to tell is how much I actually gained by doing this other than positional. But as long as you kind of break even or do better on your points when you buy new units, well, as long as you break even, you're doing a good job because you're spreading your power out into more areas. So, you know, with new legions or whatever that you're buying, as long as you don't lose points over what you would have made earlier. Even when you lose points, it might be worthwhile. I think it was maybe for blue to lose a few points there. That's going to put us over to the Sarmate, who are number 4 over on the red side. We managed to get most of the points that maybe we could expect to, 90 points. We managed to get a dominating position in Germania by sweeping around into Thrace and then across into Pannonia. That gave us dominance here and here, and we have points spread out all over the rest of it. So we got up to 90, which is, you know, a pretty big jump, mainly because nobody's really targeting us at all. And using Siegecraft, which turned out to be tremendously valuable, Julian manages to sweep down into the valuable Arabian area, the only area that's worth 4 now, landing over here in Baetica, took Rome, took Greece out itself. Just huge advances. He spent big. He bought all his units. He was down to, I think, 1 unit at the beginning. So he spent 27 points, but he was around 57 before he spent. And there's no way he would have gotten 24 points or anywhere near that with a lower spend. The card was really valuable because there were a lot of fortified areas. He got lucky rolls, there's no question there. But he had the +1, which is helpful. And, you know, I have to question, Julian the Apostate seems like an amazing emperor for his short reign, but the short reign is the issue here. You know, he succeeded very heavily in his attack eastward. Think against the Sassanids. But, and by the way, he wiped them out here. Unless this was, no, that's Armenia. See, the counters are just horrible in terms of being able to discern them. But, and he was showing signs of being an adroit politician who may have well turned the tide against Christianity, in at least as being a dominant religion. Probably not. He had to show some significant tolerance. Basically what he was doing was being tolerant towards the pagans more than anything else, although by being pagan he might have started a new trending in the empire. But the truth is, other than that victory in the east, he didn't do all that much. And the fact that they give him a fair rating and the desire with that 1 victory point per area to make him a very potent force, and there was the possibility of a civil war, but he didn't really fight it, or at least not to full completion. He got sick and died, or poisoned. It seems kind of strange to make him one of the good ones. Now, what it could be is, hey, the historical result is he didn't get selected, you know, and you could say the same about a lot of the people who didn't do a lot, but showed some capability. And I guess that's a reasonable thing, is that in most games he just won't show up. But here he really rocked and put himself out in a powerful position with his Roman faction. Now that throws us over to what should be the Huns, I think. I don't have a little marker, but I did the Sarmatai, so it's got to be, right? And they are number 5, which is over here, and that certainly is the end of things, which means we should have only 1 more Roman, which looks like it's going to be Valens rather than Theodosius. And everything looks like it's good there. So the Huns were the next activation, and the Huns are impressive. 10 strength points. You can see I took some losses. I swept through here. I didn't get control of Scythia, which was probably a mistake. That was a 1 pip thing that I could have gotten pretty easily against these guys. Instead, I was towards the end trying to hit Armenia here, and I succeeded. Oops, I forgot to give them those points. I thought I hadn't, because I saw this, which looked like what was there before. But the advantage of what I did was I managed to sack a couple of cities, which got me about 5 extra points. So overall, maybe it worked, because my dice were hot to begin with. I got full control of Arabia, gets my barbarians up to 99, which is a little behind blue and yellow, but still pretty potent, and I'm in a good position for the final turn in terms of having a lot of points in the bank right now. They may not stay, but we'll see. I'm wondering if this is a stain or a little bit of desert there. It looks too regular to be one of my stains. I don't know. It looks like there's some discoloration that's intended anyhow. Okay. And that puts us to the final position, which I think is going to be Valens as Emperor 5. Let's see how he does there. It was seriously behind the 8 ball, but they've been holding this Wrath of God. This is a powerful card, but it's dangerous to attack, hard to attack places with it, which is kind of what you need it for, right? It gives you an extra die, it lets you win ties. I already have the +1. That makes me quite a potent combat command leader. But the first time you lose the die, and then the next time you lose, win ties. Anyway, you managed to sweep through some of this, get some points for these things, including a city here that's got a fortress. That's going to be pretty tough for someone to attack. He was able to do it with all his card bonuses, but he was also hitting people who were ahead of him. The justification for trying to wipe out red for this is much greater. He also swung through from Egypt, working his way up to Mesopotamia, scoring all of these, got himself into Thrace, one last piece, went into Rome with it. I think he lost one battle throughout the whole thing, but his points for it ended up breaking him even. He had to spend 27 points to put that all down. He got 25 in territory points and a little bit more in cities. One thing that's important though is Rome is worth 2 dice at the end of the game. You may not hold this because it is so valuable. If it's a complete city, likewise, Thrace is worth 2 dice at the end. If it's a complete city, you get the looting value of the cities you hold if you're a Roman faction at the end game. Not sure. I think it's just for the Romans. Yeah, the Romans get a huge pile of points for controlled provinces and kingdom cities. So positioning at the end with the Romans is important. What does that mean for red, you know? It means whoever goes with the last emperor has a big pile of points available and may well end up spending big to try to launch a Theodoric type operation there. But I'm sorry, a Justinian type operation. But no one is really that capable there. We have some. Red might have wanted to hold their card for that and see if they could fire that off with, like Nepos, who would be just as good as Valens. He does have one more card left, but it's a useless one to him unless it's a tribal group that he has some excess pieces. So if he ends up holding on to one of these, are those the Alemanni? He shouldn't be holding them. No, those are Brigantes over here. They're not in a lot of danger, really. So, there you have it. Anyway, on to the last turn. I'm going to load this one up at this point. It's going to make that last video relatively short. So I've been getting I think 3 turns in each video, but it'll give me some time to chatter at the end if I want to.